Life can be unfair as some of us might think, but how we go through it really matters a lot, hence determining the story of one's journey in life. Uhuru Caroline is one lady that has faced it rough in her childhood, whereby she had to take up responsibilities of an adult due to the condition of her mother.
My names are Uhuru Caroline, mostly known as Zona. I'm 27 years old. I come from a family of, let's say 5, but 2 from my late mother. I was born in Wajir, partly grew up in Wajir, and then went back to Nandi Hills, where my mother was transferred to work there. So after some time, my dad decided that my mother and I should stay in Nandi Hills. But my stay in Nandi Hills with my mother never lasted for long, because it was just something that came up. She became ill. We don't know how it happened. So nimetoka nje kwa gate, so walikuwa wamenok. It was around 7. You know, that time there were no phones. So I had some knocks and went, and I was like, mbona mnamulika torch, hamuoni? And they're like, your mother, she's not seeing anything. I'm like, what? How? So I took her inside the house, and she's like, I can't see anything. I'm like, you can't see me? How is it that you can't see me? And she's like, I don't know. I'm just seeing blood images. I'm like, maybe there is a problem. So she had to be taken for checkup. Then the doctor said that her nerves were bleeding, so she needed an operation. It was done, but she never gained her sight back. So I was asking my dad, how am I going to manage? My mother, she's blind. She has no one except a brother and a sister. I'm supposed to be there. So that was, I joined Form 1. Now when I joined Form 2, that is when hell broke loose. That was around 2007, now during the election violence. I remember actually it was during the December holiday, 2007. So you know, we were, actually I was never expecting that the same people we were staying with, they'll be the first ones to fight us. Like, you people, this is not your home. My grandfather, it was my grandfather's land. So we decided to move in, and my grandfather decided to go back to Kisii. So they've known him like forever. They know the family. So the only thing we could afford to do, carry ourselves, go to the neighbor, because we couldn't carry anything. So we had to carry our own mother to make sure that ameruka fence so that nothing can happen to her. Now schools are supposed to open. Where do I pass? Where do I pass to reach Kisii County? So the only thing my dad did was like, you have to go to school first. The rest of us will find back our way home. So I went to school. Going to school, I'm like, I'm supposed to study. How can I study? I don't know if my mother, my only problem was my mother. I don't know if she's safe. I even don't know if she's home. Nilishindwa kukaa kwa shule. So one time I decided to come home. So I came home. My mother was like, why are you here? I'm like, you know the obvious. Because there's no way I can study in peace. And I don't know if you're okay. So by that time, my dad had gone back to Wajir. So I told my mother, I don't want to go back. My mother is like, you have to study. Because you said you wanted to know why I'm blind. How will you know why I'm blind if you can't study? So you have to go back to school. So actually my performances dropped. They really dropped. The next time I went with the results and my mother was like, don't let my illness affect you. Because at the end of the day, it's me. You have to study hard.
One quote that kept Caroline moving was, life is at its best when everything has fallen out of place and you decide that you're going to fight to get them right, not when everything is going your way and everyone is praising you. Having the responsibility of taking care of her blind mother was a challenge in itself, hence affecting her performance in school.
Going back, the next thing, I find my aunt coming to school and I'm like, hey, you always don't come to school, why are you here? So we went home and mom had passed. Now that is in 2008. You know what hurt me the most is like, she passed when she was still blind. I remember by that time my dad was constructing a house. So my mother could just go and touch it and feel like, hii nyumba yangu imefika wapi? Because it was really tough. You see, it was my mother that I grew up with mostly. And this was a blind mother as well. She was never blind anyway. It just happened with, you know, that thing Enyata will plan just comes. I'm like, how do I go back to school? You know, it is not easy. My mom has just passed and you want me to go to a boarding school. How? So actually my dad took me to the boarding school and he went to Wajir. But then I never lacked anything because my dad was the type like, what do you need? What don't you have? But you see, that is not enough. Because as a parent presence, it means a lot. You see, that teenagehood, you are growing on your own. No, the mother is not there, your dad is not there. And he's providing everything for you. You know, at that time, that is when you need love, to be loved. So my mom has passed and like, now people have forgotten about it. So how do I forget about it? After, now I'm in Form 3. My mom passed in August 2008. So this is Term 1, 2008. Now I'm like, studying isn't my thing. Because my mind, it's not there. I'm still thinking of my mom. So the headmistress had to call me and ask me, Uhuru, what is wrong? We know you had a difficult life, but you have to study. I'm like, who do I study for? Who? My mother is not there. Do I study for myself? And she's like, yes, suppose it is your future we are talking about. So things go tough anytime naanza kufikiria I could just faint. So I realized that it was affecting me. So my dad was advised the only thing you can do is take her to a day school next to her home, our home now, so that it would have been easier for me to heal. And I was like, this life is not for me. Because at the village, I'm alone with my grandmother. At that time, we never used to get along. You know, we are like strangers. We never used to stay there. There's some cultures I don't even understand myself, but she wants to force me to understand them. And I'm like, you know, that time you are Mrs. Know-it-all. You know everything. I'm like, my mother is not there. What can you tell me? So I decided to go back to Nandi Hills, because that is where my heart belonged. So going back to Nandi Hills, what was I going to do? I decided to, then one time I met the owner of the school where I used to study. And she was like, Uhuru, have you finished Form 4? I'm like, yes, I've finished Form 4. Can I get you a job? Where are your papers? I don't have them yet. I had a school fees balance. And that time I haven't even done my Form 4. So my dad called me that time and asked me, you should at least register for Form 4 exams. Go back and study. And then I realized my dad was saying some sense. You know, by that time I was bitter with my dad. I mean, he should be with me. I mean, we should be together at this point. Because it's like I was on my own. By then met some few friends, and you know, those friends could make me feel like I'm loved. These people, and you know, when it comes to such a time, the only consolation you can find was in a man, obviously. So when I met this guy, and I was like, this is what I've been looking for. So after that, I asked myself, what was I looking for? So we continued dating until when I realized that now my dad is calling me, asking me, you're not going to do your exams. So after Kisii Town, we went to Nandi Hills. So there, a day to exams, my dad calls me. My dad actually knew I was in Nandi Hills, but he never followed me up. You know, he was tired because he expected me to act on my own. But for me, I was not seeing that. Mind yangu ilikuwa that I want that life of doing what I want to do, what my mind tells me. So that is when I realized to go back and do my exams. So I actually traveled that same day. So the following day, the principal is like, Uhuru, what are you doing here? I'm like, I came to do my exams. I don't have a set. I don't have anything. So I had to borrow. The principal himself went and brought me a set and a ruler and told me, I wish you the best. I don't know where I had gotten that confidence that this exam I'm going to pass. How are you going to pass from 3, from 4? You haven't studied. So after my exams, so that is when the reality. So I'm doing my exams, come to realize that I'm 5 months pregnant and I don't know. So I'm like, what? Where do I start from? I was 18 years by then. Actually, okay, it was the right age. I'm a grown-up by then. So, where do I start from? My mother is not there. So I decided to seek consolation actually in the wrong place, of which I shouldn't have. So that is when the reality started hitting me. I'm going to be a mother. What am I going to do? So I decided to stay at home. So my dad actually wondered, how am I at home? And I just scared nimetoka. On my mind, I was like, I wish it is a baby boy. Because I never had any brother. My dad doesn't have. You know, in Kisii culture, if you don't have a boy in that compound, then you're not complete. That is always an assumption. So the results came out. So when the results came out, I actually had a C. So the principal, actually she came herself and told me, Uhuru, this C plane you got and you were not there. You were actually number 2. Because the first one had an A minus. And I'm like, what? So are you coming back? I'm like, coming back to do what? I already have a son. Because I gave birth to a baby boy. So that is when my dad is being told that Carol has given birth. She actually has a son. So I expected my dad to be mad at me. You know, he wasn't. Actually, he wasn't. He even paid the hospital bill. So, and then I decided, I have a son. Things have to change. So my dad asked me, I'm willing to take you to any school you want, as long as you go back to school. I'm like, Dad, I can't go back to school. I have a son to take care of. My mother is not there. Who is going to take care of him? He's like, oh, your grandmother. And I told my dad, no. Whatever I've gotten, let me deal with that. So I never told my dad I've realized my mistakes or whatever. There's a time I even used to blame him. I'm telling him, were it not for you, I wouldn't be having a child at this time because you were never there. But then I came to realize it's about my life. It's not about anyone. So all those friends I had, I dropped them. But you know, for me, I was like, if my family has accepted me with this child, then I'm going to focus my energy on this child. So during this time that my dad didn't know I was pregnant, actually the pregnancy never gave me a hard time. Until the last day, I remember I was cooking. I gave birth that same day. So my dad used to send money And you know, in the village, you lack anything. You know, with us cases, mahindi hapo, mboga iko, miwa and everything. So, and my dad used to send money. So you see, that one never gave me that chance. It never crossed my mind to go and look for him after he denied the pregnancy. So I said, let me focus this energy in my son. So by that time, kumbe, my dad had studied me, and my dad was like, no, I started with beauty therapy. So my dad asked me, what do you want to do? My mind was like, I need something that I can earn money fast so that I can be able to take care of my son. So I did it. I opened a salon. It was doing well, but my dad said, you need to go back to college. Unaona saa hizo nimekuwa mtulivu. Actually, my son changed everything. That time, I'm not even thinking of looking for the father. So my dad said, you need to go to college. So my dad had chosen for me to go to a TTC. So in this TTC, my dad never wanted me to be a P1. You know, there's that category of being a... So my dad sent me back to doing a diploma in early childhood. At first, I never understood why my dad chose that. But when I went, out of that, I was totally a different person, because it involves psychology, guidance, and counseling. So I decided that hatred I had inside me, I should just let it go and focus on this child that I have. So I decided, like, it is time to work. So after college, nikaona, hey, so at this time I'm in college, my son is supposed to go back to school. So I told my dad told me this. Before then, my dad remarried. Now I became bitter. I'm like, my dad remarried? Who? Until I later knew who it was. She was one of our house helps, and she was the best. So we could go with her to the market, and we lie to my dad, this is the amount we have. So after I realized it was her, my dad told me, it's my life. I have to move on. I mean, your mother is not there. So when I realized it's her, I was like, well, I knew her. She was a good person. You know, before then, my aunts, they had started feeding me that your dad has married, he doesn't care about you, you are here alone, he's the other side with his life. But then I was like, when I knew it was her, I said, she was a good person. So maybe she'll make him happy. That is when I was in my last year in college. My son was supposed to go to school as a early childhood. So my dad took him and my stepmother. So when I'm coming from college, nikifika nyumbani, where's my son? They're like, we decided to take him so that aanze shule, because here shule is Kombali, the best school is far. So they actually paid for me that early childhood period. Then when I finished, I decided now it's time for me to work. So I decided to start from zero. First, I have to look for a house, of which I don't know if I can manage. And then I had to start paying school fees. So I told my dad, from now on, I'm going to pay my son's school fees. I don't know how, but I'm going to work on it. So I decided to look for jobs. And you know, finding jobs, it's hard. Because where do you start from? Teaching, when you go, you know, teaching, it doesn't have money. So, and the locals there, the local schools, you're being paid 4,000. What can 4,000 do? 4,000, you can't even manage to pay rent. So I was like, maybe I should just even go to a club and work. So there's a friend who used to come to my salon. So I texted her and told her that I need to work. So she was working in Maasai Mara. So in Maasai Mara, and she was like, you can be able to get a job here. If you are patient, you can be able to get a job inside the national park or these camps. But before then, what will I do? I decided to get a job at the club. So, and the only thing I was praying to God is, please, I need a good job to pay for my son's school fees. Within 1 week, I got a job in Maasai Mara National Park. So when I was there, I started now. So I saying that this is good money. So I started having, so I was looking at, taking the stock. And you're like, hey, this lady gets a lot of money. Because I was the one I had to order the stocks and the purchases. And I was like, one time I want to be like her. Because this is a lot of money. So I went to Maasai Mara, worked there for some time. Until now I realized that paying school fees and whatever, I'm far from my son. So calling him on daily basis isn't enough. Because there you can stay for 3 months. There's no leave. The whole season when it's high. So ikifika low season, there's no job. Then you go to square one. You are either told to go home and wait. But I said, how long am I going to be doing this? That's when the idea of business came on my mind. So I decided I opened a salon. After that, I was like, this money is not enough. Because I need to go see my son to Wajir and then come back. Holidays, he comes. So until that idea of Zona collections came in. So you see, in the salon, I used to have some girls who used to work for me. But the only thing, I used to employ women that I see, this person she needs work. She has a kid. You see, you look for there are those people who really, yes, they need a job. But in their mind, it's just a job. So I said, how can I use social media to at least grow? So, and then that is when the idea of Zona collections came in. So I decided, like, I was selling clothes. So I started seeing some pages on Facebook, collections, and I was like, I can still use these to at least better my future and someone's. So I went, nikakalisha wale wasichana chini, I told them, I have an idea that I want to work on, and this one needs my full attention. So you guys, can you be able to manage here so that I can be able to do this? This is what I want to do. And they were like, yes, it's a good idea. But if you say you want to close this shop, where do we go to? Because we depend on the shop and we have been good to you. So I decided to leave them there and come to Nairobi. In fact, I was coming to Nairobi. I didn't know even where I was to start from. So I came, decided to get a house, and I decided to use social media. And I go to Isli, get my stuff, decided to open a page, and that is how we started the Zona collections. At the end of the day, I realized it's all about you. But the only thing that I don't want to experience again in life is, as a parent, there's more into you have food and everything. There's more into that presence of yours, you yourself as a parent. Because were it not that I was tough enough, I don't know where I will be right now. Because that time when you have nobody, there's nobody, you are just alone, no mother, your father is on the other side. You know, at times, a parent, kama mzazi uko na life yako. Unaona? So, I was really trying to be that strong person and try to push on. By the time I started to introduce prayers now. No, by that time I didn't know that you can pray and God can help you. Until when I realized now I have to pray, God helps. This hatred inside me had to go. So even if I was alone, I knew that I have to grow. You say that spiritually and myself, I have to grow and at least help people out there. Because the same thing I went through, I know that some are going through right now. But they can't have a chance to better their life if they can't find maybe a job or something that they can be able to push themselves up. But at the end of the day, if all I know is if you believe in yourself, then you can be able to make it. You can do anything. You can be able to cross mountains that you never even thought of that you can. Because right now, I can say that as much as I went through a hard life, I'm still strong. and I'm still moving on. Sometimes I find people, they're like, oh, Zona, maisha imekuwa ngumu. Be tough as well, because you have both parents. Talk to them. Try to tell them to understand you. I never had anyone to talk to. Basically, I was on my own. But I still made it in life. And I'm hoping to still make it. To the parents, me being one of them, there's this crucial thing of how you bond with your child. You know, with my father, he used to, anaandika makosa zenye nimefanya, maybe January I did this, February I did this, June I did this. And when he comes, atanitolea yale makosa nieke kwa meza niambie, you did this and this and this on such a day. And he punishes me, actually he beats me up. You see, that is not the right way. The way you bond with your kids, it's very important. Kalisha mtoto chini, talk to them. But as much as you're talking to them, make sure that your presence is there. Because you're going to talk to your child and you are not there. How will it be? Because utamwambia, huyu ameniambia na ameenda zake. So what next? The peer that is out there is bad. The kind of friends we keep at such a moment, especially when you're a teenager. That's the time like you need your parents to be next to you. The presence in your children's life is important. Because you can give them food and everything. But if you're not there to guide them, then nothing will go right. Always be there for them. Talk to them. Sit with them down. Never stay far from them. That is when you can be able to know my child is going through this. Because if you're not with them, you cannot know what does my son is going through this, my daughter is going through this. You can't know. Because at times as a child, you know, there's some things you fear to say. Like it was my dad. There's some things I can't tell my father. If my mother was there, ningemwambia. So my dad, unashindwa unaanzaje kumwelezea. So let's always make sure that we are with our kids. We follow them up in every step. Because in every step, a child unajua mind ina grow differently. So if you're with them in every step, it's the best thing that can ever happen to a child.
As it's said, weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Caroline's life changed for the better as time went by, hence transformation. Indeed, no more weeping, but celebrating a life that made it despite the challenges.